The following video game is rated M for mature. The following video is also rated M for mature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Let's talk androids.
Detroit: Become Human. An interactive, cinematic adventure game that came out earlier this year, developed by Quantic Dream Studios and released by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PlayStation 4. Time for a quick history lesson. Quantic Dream are a developer in Paris, France, founded by the well-known David Cage. They're most noted for their releases Indigo Prophecy, known as Fahrenheit everywhere else in the world, in September of 2005. Heavy Rain in February of 2010, and Beyond Two Souls, starring Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe in October of 2013. These games have a heavy focus on characters, storytelling, cinematography, expansive and branching narratives depending on players' choices, and emotions. That's the word of the day, folks. Emotions. Here we go. Quantic Dream are mostly known for interactive dramas, a genre of games where you're essentially watching a movie while occasionally having impact on certain parts of the story, depending on choices you make in dialogue or how quickly you react to certain situations. Or sometimes no impact whatsoever and you're just inputting Street Fighter Hadokens to ensure you dodge a flying pipe. I'm not talking about Metal Gear Solid, where you partake of a lengthy expository cutscene and then are tossed back into gameplay. No, these games, for all intents and purposes, are cutscenes where you once in a while are presented with a dialogue option, or a choice to take or leave an item or a potential weapon, or a QuickTime event during a combat scene to keep the movie from rolling credits far too soon. Not necessarily a bad thing, but we'll get there. Now, allow me to preface this. I like these games. Some more than others, but that's just par for the course regardless of what sort of games you're talking about. I am a sucker for good writing and good stories. Games with minimal gameplay but terrific storytelling are among my favorites. The Stanley Parable comes to mind. Combining good gameplay with good writing is a recipe for longevity. Example? Portal. Seriously, that game came out almost 11 years ago. A freebie. A footnote attached to the side of the Half-Life 2 and Team Fortress 2 games in the orange box. And to this day, people still talk about the cake being a lie. I should also mention that having grown up with a Super Nintendo in the house, graphics really don't mean all that much to me. I mean, yeah, if I'm playing a game and something really pretty appears on screen, I'm gonna stop and say, "Wow, that's pretty," and move on. If it looks bad, I'll notice, but if I'm having fun, that's the most important part. Mighty Number 9, that could have looked like heaven, but it wouldn't have saved it from being a bowl of moldy mac and cheese. The Order 1886, gorgeous to look at. Gameplay and story like rusty nails, hard to swallow, and the ending made you fear for more. Hell, as a huge fan of the Dragon Age franchise, and a lot of other fans will probably agree with me, as much as I adore Origins, most of the character models in that game look like feet. Then again, as much as I love the Dragon Age games, they kind of have their own things going on, so maybe that's a story for another time. I'm getting severely off topic, back to Quantic Dream. In March of 2012, Quantic Dream released a short film entitled Kara, a tech demo rendered in real time by the PlayStation 3. It showed us the inside of a factory where an android of human proportions was being constructed and tested. The android, the eponymous Kara, after being initiated, started showing signs of free will and free thought, instantly prompting her to be disassembled and reset. As a result, she was terrified, audibly and visibly conveying emotion. She somehow managed to sway the worker testing her and was set free into the world. Personally, I loved this. I wasn't sure if it was a proof of concept for something else, or just David Cage being, well, David Cage, but I was certainly intrigued. Narratives like that always garnered my interest, the advancement of technology crossing paths with morality. Years went by and nothing followed it up. I let it float away, certain it was just some short film and nothing more. Then, in October of 2015, Quantic Dream announced a project known as Detroit: Become Human. The first trailer was shown at E3 2016, another trailer and some gameplay at E3 2017, and then on the 25th of May 2018, Detroit: Become Human hit store shelves. That brings us to now. I can hardly say I've been waiting with bated breath for this to come out, but I've been excited to see what's going to come from it. I enjoyed Heavy Rain, what with some really tense and harrowing moments, as well as some delightful glitches and meme fodder. Jason! I liked the idea of Beyond Two Souls, even if it wasn't that incredible, and I played Indigo Prophecy, let's put it that way. The game's been out for a little while now. I've played it. I've finished it. What do I think of it? Well, this is gonna be rough. Okay, look, I really like the idea and the concept of this game. I like the story at a glance. On paper, it looks like it could be a grand piece of social narrative. In practice, it's a fucking mess. Okay, not gonna jump the gun here. So let's start with a positive. The beginning, for instance. Delight Betrothed Hummus starts small, like most games, at the title screen. The menu, where we're introduced to Chloe. She does a really swell job, no joke, of setting the mood and even establishing some semblance of immersion. She introduces herself as an android that will be helping us throughout the gameplay experience. There's a little more to her than we know just yet, but we'll see that later. I should also mention here that we might be moving into some serious story spoilers. So, if you intended on picking up the game for yourself, don't watch any further than this. I hope you at least appreciate the history lesson, but that's all you're going to get out of this video. Sorry. I'm going to try and skirt around as many potential plot points as I can, but I cannot promise anything when trying to get my points across. I'm also going to be bouncing around the continuity a little bit, but hardly to the point where it's going to affect the narrative. Because things in this game can change so drastically based on just how long you took looking at a magazine, smaller plot points and things might get glazed over a bit. Certain things that happened in my playthrough might not have happened in yours, and vice versa. So try and take that with a grain of salt. Let's move on. After adjusting settings and getting familiar with Chloe, we are dropped into the story. An android is riding up an elevator, showing off some sweet-ass coin tricks. When the door opens, a SWAT cop in full f***ing radar armor sees us and says, "Negotiator on site." The same cop, or different cop, I don't really f***ing know, brings a visibly upset woman around the corner who begs the android to save her child. Once she sees he's an android, though, she's even angrier. This sets the tone really well. It's the future, there's androids, there's racism. This also leads to what I can say is one of my favorite parts of this entire game.
My name is Connor. I'm the android sent by CyberLife.
Connor. He is exactly what he says he is, and his gameplay sections are not only among my favorites, they're actually the closest thing this game is going to come to traditional gameplay. Connor's sections pan out like a really cool 21st century edition of LA Noire, with LED lights and a hell of a lot more bloom. Exploring a scene, examining evidence, piecing together what happened, licking stuff! After dealing with a hostage situation absolutely brimming with emotions, we're introduced to protagonist number 2, Kara. And boy does she look familiar, huh? Her introduction is extremely short and does very little to pan out the narrative, but it does introduce us to the totally least shady-ass human being in the whole damned game. All she gets so far is a scenic tour of Detroit while staring glomlessly out the window while the opening credits roll, which I suppose works well to establish a location for the world. We're shown the oddly bionic downtown, a homeless man whose job was taken by the android scum, and the pristine city eventually fades away to the less than savory outskirts. And then we... Ugh. So, our third and final protagonist. This is Marcus. He is owned by and is a servant and companion to a kind old artist, Mr. Hugh Hefner here, who is immobile and deteriorating in health. And he also seems to be the only person in this goddamn game aware that human beings are being a bunch of dickbags to the androids.
This world doesn't like those who are different, Marcus. Don't let anyone tell you who you should be.
We meet Hefner's son, Leo, asking for money, acting really sketchy. Hefner is pragmatic, says no, knowing full well the twitchy kid is going to be buying drugs. And Leo, bless his heart, he handles this in the most adult way possible.
Dad, I need money for drugs!
How about no?
You never loved me, Dad. I hate you. Fuck you and your unnecessarily handsome RoboCop.
Cut back to Kara. She and Shady McDickface pull up to a house that wouldn't be out of place in American Horror Story. They go inside, he tells her what to do, yells at her because she was gone at the CyberLife store, being repaired, and having all of her memory wiped, and as a result, the house is a goddamn disaster and needs to be cleaned, and it was all her fault. At this moment, some of my niggling issues with detained beloved hubris have started to poke through the surface. After Marcus serves Mr. Hefner his breakfast, while he's eating and watching the news, you are instructed to find something to do.
Wait, what?
And once you're finally moved into this delightful little house on the prairie with Captain Hangover and his daughter, the first thing you're relegated to is cleaning the house.
Wait, what?
Yep, you do the dishes, take out the trash, fix a dishwasher, pick up beer bottles, get yelled at because you're blocking the fucking TV from Scruffy Von Douchenuts, then go upstairs and clean some more.
I play video games to not do this kind of stuff. Why? That's the exact opposite of what video games are for. Find something to do. I did! I wanted to play a video game. Also, who the fuck scrubs a plate like this?
Kara does some more cleaning, shows you some story stuff with Alice, goes into Mr. Fartsniffer's room, opens a drawer, finds prescription drugs, and a gun!
Anton Chekhov, do your stuff.
Let's cut back to Connor. He's in a dingy part of town. He goes into a bar, and you're given a target. Not for a suspect, but for another cop. We find him, and is that Clancy Brown? Oh my God, it's Mr. Krabs!
What?
Connor was sent to get into contact with Lieutenant Hank Anderson by the police department because they want these two to partner up on cases involving androids exhibiting free will. Androids that do this are called deviants, which I have to say is an interesting choice of word. Hank and his interactions with Connor are another of my favorite things in this game. It kind of follows a few different tropes, such as that of a buddy cop scenario, humans interacting with artificial intelligence with little concept of sarcasm, turns of phrase, or emotions, and Hank being an alcoholic cop with very little to lose. Morbid, yes, but black comedy is a good thing. They team up, go to a crime scene, more examinations, more analyzing, more licking! They manage to find the deviant in the attic.
You know, that sounds kind of weird saying that out loud.
Back to Kara. She made spaghetti, and Dad is upsetty. Big Papa Pee Pants here gets angry for no reason because he's strung out on drugs, and his wife left him all those years ago, so it's totally the little kid's fault. And Kara, wanting to protect Alice, goes deviant. I have to admit, the visual metaphor for going deviant is actually quite compelling. The body is still, unmoving, while on the inside, there is a struggle, a battle. The spirit knows the right thing to do and is visibly fighting to make that happen. Consequence be damned. It's actually a great visual representation of internalized emotions. God damn it. In one way or another, Dad gets dodged, Kara saves the kiddo courtesy of quick time events. Then they hop on a bus, and they ride away. Back to Marcus. We come back home, Leo is there, stealing stuff.
I need drug money. This painting is mine because you're old and dying.
Leo, go home.
Fuck you! You never loved me. Not like you loved your hot robot officer. Kill him!
Back to Connor. They're interrogating the deviant they found in the attic.
I still don't like saying that.
It's going absolutely nowhere until Connor volunteers to go in. After a lot of one-sided conversation, the interrogation winds up revealing something that no one expected.
Only RA9 can save us.
RA9. This particular deviant believes RA9 is a savior, some sort of shepherd to deviant androids, leading them to a time and place where they can be free. RA9 actually appears quite a few different times throughout the course of this game. It's shown a lot, and is often teased in some sort of way that makes you think there'll be a big reveal at the end. We'll get to that too. Back to Kara. She and the kid escape Cyrano to backhand a child and get to town in the middle of the night. They have to find a place to stay, are confronted with moral dilemmas, racism. They sleep. The end. Nothing else really happens.
Now, we're coming to what could be deemed a significant turning point for the plot. One that's performed and shot in such a way as to enhance the tension and the helplessness that one might feel in a similar situation. One that enhances the emotions. I do have to say, in terms of cinematography, the way this is shot and performed is quite compelling. As for everything else...
Okay, look at this. After the cops come in and bust a cap and Marky Mark, they straight up dump him into a landfill. That's bad enough. But he's crippled. His power is drained, his ears and one of his eyes are fucked beyond repair, and he wakes up lost, confused, newly deviant. He goes through the process of dragging himself through the slog of rain and mud, replaces his shattered stubs with 2 legs that he found, and clambers to his feet. The sound is muffled and static. The camera is shaky and shifts in and out of focus. The scan ability that you've had since the beginning is disabled. We don't know where we are. We don't know what to do. We are the very definition of lost. We're gifted a rather obtuse direction of where to go later in the plot, and then a more direct one visually. And we're guided down a narrow path of android limbs to a swath of wasteland littered with literal bodies walking and crawling along the filth. Some unmoving, some twitching and convulsing on their last sparks of energy. And here we're shown the main goal of this scene. Find parts. It's a scavenger hunt. It started so strongly. For a viewer, it was compelling, tense, and actually quite jarring. And it even contains a nod to the fate of the very first Kara some of us ever met.
Okay, now sing something in Japanese.
Sakura, Sakura.
For the player, it was a fiddly, time-wasting, pixel-hunting mess. You find the parts, you get fixed, not like that, climb out of the landfill in some sort of slapdash metaphor for an ascent from hell, a totally not reference to Shawshank Redemption, and then one strangely convenient trench coat later, the scene is over.
Now, at this point, we've established goals and motives for all 3 of our main protagonists. Marcus is back from the dead, presumably searching for Leo. Kara is searching for a safe haven for herself and Alice, and Connor is a cop, just doing the job he was programmed for. These goals and motives, for the most part, get stuck to quite rigidly. From here on out, I'm just going to start boiling down and pointing out some of my favorite mechanics and moments from the game. Here we go.
Throughout the gameplay of Decoy Bespoke Humor, as we come and go, we'll come back to the menu screen, greeted by Chloe, of course. Chloe is something else. At the start, she seems like any other android we'll meet in the course of the story. Programmed, detached, spouting philosophical musings and quotes and linking them haphazardly to the story. But along the way, she exhibits other nuances that people might miss. And although it's a little bit predictable, it's still something else. She starts showing interest, worry, concern for how things in the story are panning out, and how we, as the players, are doing. Singing to us, complimenting us on our interior decorating. Then it goes even further. She always looks like she has something else to say. She's unsettled about something, lost in thought. In thought! Then she asks if we're friends. Friends! And then she tells a goddamned joke!
Oops, I think your saved game is corrupted. Just kidding.
A joke that actually got me good. Then, once we finish the game for the first time, she talks to us about how she's been thinking and needs to leave, needs to find out who she is. She asks for permission to leave, and we have to make the final call. It's impressively compelling, more so than certain parts of the actual game itself. If we say yes, she'll be as happy as a clam and grateful to us, but we'll never see her again. Plus, if we let her go, it erases our save file. If you say no, then she is visibly hurt. Then says she's going to reset herself so she can forget who she became and stay a machine.
Then she's there for the rest of the time we have the game. Same Chloe, same expressions, still the same person that sang a hymn for us and showed concern for our well-being, but she's not the same. She's not there anymore. She wasn't even real to begin with, but we're worried about her. She's forgotten. Weren't we friends? This is a video game menu. Why am I feeling... Anyhow, plot lines have boiled down to a basic goal for each one. Seemed like things could be moving towards some kind of resolution. Marcus got out of the landfill, found Jericho, raided CyberLife stock for supplies, and became the leader of a small rebellion. Kara escapes town, goes to a house, is almost wiped and experimented on, goes to a theme park, and moves to a farmhouse with the intent to get to the Great White North. Connor is still a cop doing cop stuff, licks more fluids, pisses off Hank, becomes Hank's friend, pisses off Hank, becomes Hank's friend, and spends too much of Hank's money on strippers!
Just don't forget to leave a tip for old Mr. Krabs.
It was then I started noticing how many issues I had with Deploy Begrudged Hamsteak, and how little of them had actually changed or improved over the course of the game. The longer it went on, the less involved I was with the story. The less involved I was, the more annoying and prominent my issues with the game got. The aforementioned landfill section with Marcus, it was simultaneously one of the best and worst parts of the game. And a lot of the time, yes, there are goals and things we're assigned to explore or examine. But there's a lot of times where we're given a specific goal, but assloads of space and fuck all for directions. The intro segment as Marcus, when we're sent to pick up the paints, comes right to mind. We have one thing to do, a long way to get there, and very little else outside of a heavy-handed world-building experience to keep us company. In that scene, there is a very good chance you could go through the whole thing with nothing else happening but going to the shop, getting the paint, and getting back on the bus, and it takes 10 minutes! Some scenes will end far too quickly, fading to black more times than the third Lord of the Rings film. And some scenes, they serve little purpose other than to rather hurriedly push along a plot point, introduce some deus ex machina du jour, or an attempt to force emotions. You want some examples? I got some for you right here. Kara, take a tip from a perfect stranger, go to a house, potentially get tentacle raped. Yoink! Off to Canada. Marcus, sitting around, doing nothing, sees one android getting yelled at in the streets. Result, climb a skyscraper and heist the fucking airways! Connor? Actually, Connor doesn't have a lot of moments like these. His stuff checks out. The search for Jericho, that was a cool idea, and a good introduction to the parkour construction mechanic. But did it have to take so damn long? And how about delightfully vague shit like when we're told to find something to do? I've never seen a game be so linear and at the same time at points have no direction whatsoever, or some sort of obtuse instruction compounded by wonky controls and stupid-ass quick-time events! Connor's investigative gameplay is stellar. His dynamic with Hank is also the source of some of my favorite moments in the game. Hell, Hank on his own is a delight, but not even they could save this mess. Characters are one-dimensional tropes in physical form. Even Rose, God bless her, starts off delightful, but she's plunged into little more than a stereotype before she's off-screen permanently. With Hank being the exception, most of the cops in this game needed to be backhanded with a shovel. North is an irritant who begins as a standoffish ball of angst, but then only shows any kind of evolution beyond angry at Marcus, or fawning over Marcus, to become a two-dimensional love object for Marcus.
All humans must die because I'm grumpy and sit like this to make it seem like I'm not your average girl robot.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Please give me that robo-dick.
Did you by any chance notice that I gave North and Leo the same irritating and one-dimensional voice? Yeah, there's a reason for that! This story at times creates more questions than it will ever answer. Do the BioWare up and down relationship arrows actually mean anything outside of Hank? What the fuck is red ice? Was there supposed to be an arc here, but Cage couldn't figure out a way to make it about emotions? What's Marky Mark and the Sparky Bunch gonna do about Leo? The reason he wound up in the damned landfill? Nothing? No? Okay! Where is Kara hiding that gun? Those wire cutters? That money? Why does North dress like What's-Her-Nuts from Flashdance? Where is Alice's LED? Why can Marcus convert androids? Why can androids cry? Whose idea was that? Why is the President of the United States an Irish vlogger? Why the fuck are we at war with Russia? Tell me more about Kamsky, that smarmy fuck! Seriously, what the fuck is RA9? What the fuck is that statue supposed to be? Where the fuck even is Amanda? The fuck is a dirty bomb? Don't make me do that to Chloe! Her name is Kara Luther Emotions!
I've played through this game 3 separate times, and there were still things about it I didn't learn until I looked at a goddamned Wikipedia. Imagine reading the Harry Potter series and it wasn't until you got on a plane, flew to England, found J.K. Rowling eating a Whopper at a fucking Burger King in Leicester Square, and spoke the secret phrase, nitwit, blubber, ointment, tweak, that you discovered that Harry Potter had a scar on his forehead. You can say that that's a testament to how deep Detroit Rock City's lore is. I say it's not when it involved crucial plot points. I understand that David Cage is trying to be all socially and politically profound with his work, but he's less self-aware than most of the androids in this game. And it certainly doesn't help that he's what modern scientists would refer to as a twat waffle. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I am 100% fine with strong, story and character-based games, as well as a sucker for well-written characters, even if the game is not that great. David Cage is a man who pretends he has a lot to say about society. A man who thinks he has the thumb on the pulse of said society, while, in reality, it's up his own nose. This game tries so desperately to be revelatory in its hackneyed allegories for social issues and human rights issues, as well as what seems to be a desperate attempt to act aware of current events. Child and spousal abuse, drug use, police states, thought control, lesbian robots, Holocaust parallels, stop talking about the extermination camps, we get it! And more racism allegories than you can shake your freshly polished billy club at. Even putting androids in the back of the bus. What is the matter with you? Jesus Christ, Cage, you're French. Why haven't you given up yet? It really tries to be sincere, but on the whole, it comes out more ham-fisted than 24 professional fighters at a Thanksgiving dinner. Cage thinks he has a lot to say, and thinks what he'll say is absolutely earth-shattering in its profundity. Yet within the first hour of debunk bespectacled hamburgers, we see the remotely attractive white male android working a relatively cushy job for the police, the cute female android as a living analog for an abused wife with a drug-addled husband and a terrified daughter, and the dark-skinned android beaten down in the fucking streets by protesters and called not human, a stealer of jobs. Within that hour, the only profound social commentary was made by the rich, dying old white man in the wheelchair. Even Chloe, bless her digital heart, could not avoid this. At random times on the menu screen, she feels the need to bring up that Detroit was part of the Underground Railroad. Aside from that, he's so intent on making these digital objects on screen convey emotions that he's completely forgotten to install any fucking depth. Marcus is supposed to be Detroit's android savior with a messianic complex and a level of power over androids that could level a third world country, but he has the charisma of a bowl of mashed potatoes. And I love mashed potatoes! Stories are great things. They can be a fable with a lesson or a moral at the end. A timeless tale of old brought to the modern day, or little more than an adventure to fantastical places where imagination takes flight to the stars. Detroit Become Human has a multitude of great moments spattered all around and a handful of great characters within it. I would have happily played 30 plus hours of just Connor's investigative gameplay with a splash of interactions with Hank, watching as friendship or rivalry evolved. But a series of impactful moments a good story does not make. If Quantic Dream's intent with this game was just to tell a story, then good for them. Silver Star, they did just fine. But if they're attempting to be sage-like and premonitory with the human condition, it flopped on the deck and flopped like a fish.
Don't tell me this fish can't swim!
People say this game is deep. Whoop-de-doo! You can grab a shovel, dig a hole, and make it as deep as you'd like. There's still gonna be nothing in it! I bashed through this game no less than 3 times, and every single time I was left with endings that popped up so abruptly and unexpectedly, I thought they were glitches. There's still a lot of potential in this mess, and what we got was a great proof of concept based on a 7-minute short film from 4 years prior. But it's a proof of concept that some people paid upwards of $50 for. And as a result, it's hard to recommend for either gamers or movie buffs. That being said, anyone who really wanted this game, they already have it, and they already love it. Now, I'm not the type of person that's going to try and quantify an experience like a video game, a movie, or an album with a score of some kind. But after playing this 3 times over, I just don't get how it's cranking out 7s, 8s, and 9s out of 10 across the board. I was never overwhelmed at any point, nor was I underwhelmed. And I was never just whelmed because
Well, believe it or not, whelmed and overwhelmed actually mean the exact same thing. The English language, everybody. As the movie that David Cage wants it to be, I don't know. I guess it sort of tells the story it wants to tell, even if it is incredibly inconsistent and at times obnoxious with its tones and themes. And it feels like it went out of its way to avoid showing us anything new or fresh in favor of a stilted and disingenuous statement about human nature, as well as really, really clumsy allusions to mid-20th century America, among other things. As a video game, I am actually struggling to find words to describe how bland it is. It wasn't monumentally great, nor was it cataclysmically awful. It was just meh. Yeah, meh. Okay, how do I do this? What do I give it? A 5 out of 10? A 2.5 stars out of 5? A half-eaten taco out of a 6-pack and a pound? You know what? I'm gonna give it a pass. And you should consider doing the same. Or don't. I can't tell you how to live. That's just my 2 bits. We'll see you next time. And for the love of God, will someone send David Cage to Lionsgate? They would give him all the money they had to make whatever movie his tiny little brain wanted, and all he would have to do was walk into the boardroom and say, "Emotions and boobies!"